Hello, hello. This is the My Artifact episode number 3564. Today's date is August 30, 2025. It's been almost like a night at 10:08 p.m. All right, we just directly jump into the question. Let's go. All right, yeah. Question is, if I am solo, what should I do myself versus delegate or outsource? Okay. What exactly is this question? Okay, yeah. First of all, let me explain this question. What exactly is this about? So this question is mostly associated with a business startup, right? I wanted to establish a business and startup, and I need to know about how do I supposed to do this thing, because obviously I am not a graduate person. I haven't really done any kind of like a MBA or master degree. So, and I never really have any experience regarding about nothing really at all. Okay, yeah. So asking this question to myself right now, it just I am kind of like a try to understand what will gonna happen with me in the future and how do I supposed to prepare myself. All right, yeah. Basically, this question is mostly associated with the hiring people. Okay, like basically how do you supposed to hire and things like that. Now regarding about this question, the question says that ki what kind of like a person are you? Are you person that love to do everything by yourself, or you are the kind of like a person who would kind of like simply hire somebody to kind of like a do the work for you? What kind of like a simply person that you are? Now basically, if I'm gonna say I wanted to kind of like establish a business and startup, obviously I can't do by myself alone, and there is a multiple reason that why I can't do that. First of all is that ki probably when you try to do kind of like a something big business or like any kind of like a something business, obviously you need a kind of like a something particular people around you. Okay, because let me tell you one thing, if you decided that key you have to do this thing everything by yourself, then probably you can't run a business. Because let me tell you one thing, you can't, it just there is no nothing, it's impossible. Like dude, it's impossible means that something that possible, no, it's okay. What I'm trying to tell you is this thing that key, okay, yeah, some of the business that you can do it alone. Which kind of like a small business might be kind of like a something writing, or kind of like a something a graphic designing, or might be kind of like a something is this thing that ki most of the work are kind of like a something automated. But let me tell you one thing, when you are trying to kind of like a say you are kind of like a establish some sort of business or things or that, like you are providing services or product, that means you need a kind of like a couple of people. And why I'm saying this thing that ki solo cannot be happen or cannot be possible is because of multiple things. First of all, okay, you cannot be talented in every scenario. Let's just say that ki I am a graphic designer. Okay, I am a graphic designer. Okay, and I kind of like make the graphics and I sell my graphics to the multiple clients and things like that. Right? Okay. Right now, it's just like that. I am really good at my graphic designing, and I'm kind of like something really great at. Okay, I have a couple of clients who are kind of like something I'm working for them, and it's kind of like something really good. Okay, yeah. Now, what exactly happened that ki there are multiple clients came. Okay, like basically, when you are kind of like doing your work, there is a one client for 1 week. That means the whatever the work that client says, you really required a 1 week to complete, and you've done it very well and very good. Fine. But let's just imagine that ki tomorrow you might get 2 or 3 clients per week. Then how do you supposed to manage? Would you kind of like create 2 3 client at the same time? Like if you could say yes, I could do that, but if you're gonna try to do this thing, then probably you will kind of lose the quality of the graphics that you're doing, and the client will not gonna satisfied with your graphics, and he will gonna run away. So what is actually essential thing is that ki I'm not doubting that you are not really good in graphics. You are really good in graphics. Okay, yeah. But the problem is that when there is a too much, like basically when the quantities increase, the qualities decrease. Okay, this is a kind of like an inverse proportion regarding about that. So you just have to understand, if the quantities of increase, then qualities of increase, and it apply on everything. It apply on products, services, and everything. So what I'm trying to tell you is this thing that if you are kind of like a try to provide any kind of like a service or whatever it is, make sure that the quality of the product is good. Okay, yeah. And for that thing, if you want to compromise the quality, then it's up to you. Okay, yeah. But if you are running the business, then compromise the quantity is also not an kind of like, it's also kind of like a some issue, right? It is also a kind of like a some issue. That means like that key, you can't handle 3 clients per week. That means you can't earn that much amount of money, right? Simple is that, na? So how do you supposed to do this thing? Obviously, you need a kind of like a person who is kind of like a somebody equal talented like you as a graphic designer, so that he would kind of like somebody work for you, right? That's why the solo cannot be possible when you're established the business. Or if you are kind of like a doing solo, then you might not gonna grow that much. You might gonna handle 1 client per week, and that's it. Okay, that's it. So probably you might gonna improve your quality and things and that, but the advantage and profit that you get with multiple people with you, then it will kind of like a something really good. And as also regarding about when you are running a business, you have not only just the things that you do, it depends on multiple things. Like let's just say client have mails, feedback or things or that. How do you supposed to respond that? How do you supposed to do this thing simultaneously doing the graphics? You can't handle everything. Like basically invoices, there is a kind of like a lot of backend stuff happen, documentation things, signature, verification, copyright, lot of stuff. Like basically, and regarding about also money. Okay, yeah. Like basically you will gonna earn money, so how that money will gonna manage? You need a kind of like a person who could manage all those things. Because let me tell you one thing, personal expenses and professional expenses cannot be mixed together. If it mixed, then probably the budget will kind of like a damage. And obviously you don't really have time. So if you are kind of like a surrounded by a lot of work, then you are kind of like exhaust, and you will not gonna perform the well that you should supposed to be do. So important is that it is really essential to hire a people so that you will become free, and so that you will think longer and also in the future. But dude, what I'm trying to tell you is this thing. Let's just say I am a graphic designer and I really make really good graphics. Okay, yeah. You are saying that I have to be kind of like somebody give my work to someone else. So how do I supposed to kind of like find that if I hire that particular person who is kind of like doing the graphics like as good as possible? That's a really good question. Let's just say, how do you supposed to do that? You need to hire like basically, let me tell you one thing. Okay, yeah. I'm trying to tell you regarding about the person you are. Okay. Also, the solution that I'm trying to tell you is a kind of like a depend on multiple stages. First of all, let's talk about the stage. Okay, yeah. You are not earning any money. You love graphics. You are doing graphics. Suddenly you get the client and you are kind of like doing the work for client. Okay, yeah. This is the first time you are kind of like doing this thing, so you just have to do it by yourself. Okay, yeah. Because don't really think about like at the early stages, don't really think about it as a business. No, just do it. Do all those things by together. Obviously, you will have a lot of time, but you will earn little less amount of money. But it is also really good that you can handle everything, like maybe emails or things or that. At the beginning, yeah, you could do all those things. Okay, yeah. But when you start earning little bit amount of money, and when you realize that, dude, right now just kind of like I'm really exhausted and things like that. So I need a kind of like a new person. So what kind of like a new person that you will gonna hire? Obviously, you are a graphic designer, so you need another graphic designer, so that the kind of like a little bit burden that you have or little bit load that you have, it will kind of like a load will take off to you. Okay, now you hire the graphic designer, which is kind of like you do the ad and kind of like hire the kind of like a graphic designer. Okay, yeah. Now basically what is at least this thing? Graphic designing is a creative work. Okay, yeah. The taste of that you are making, the another graphic designer is a kind of like a very different taste. It's a kind of like a, that's why now like a every artist has a kind of like a different taste of music, right? So every graphic designer has a different taste of graphics, right? So what exactly is this thing that you just have to train, like you have to train to that particular graphic designer. Try to tell them that this is the technique that I use, this is the color palette that I use, this is the kind of like a design that I use, this is the pattern that I use, and this and that. Why you are trying to tell this thing? Because of that client likes my design. So basically I have to teach my design how to do his. So basically client like his design, which is kind of like a simply resonate like my design, right? So that's why I have to teach them regarding about color, science, theory, pattern. There are shadows, depth, highlights, lot of stuff. Okay, yeah, regarding about every possible that I kind of like assembly whatever I experience, I kind of like tell him regarding about this and that and that and that. Okay, yeah. Now when I teach them, then that particular person is kind of like simply doing this work. So basically, when the client is actually give the design, so you have to hire that design, you have to kind of like let that design to that your graphic designer just do your work. Okay, and then he start doing, and also kind of like a take the kind of like a simply understand how does he doing and things like that. Like basically take a basically is this thing the client like your work now, so you have to be re-verify is this kind of like a really good or not. Okay, yeah. Then it is kind of like something really good, then forward that graphic designing to the client. Okay, yeah. Now you hire the one person. Because of you hire the one person, so that means you could take at least 2 clients per week. Okay, yeah. So if you are taking 2 clients per week and you are earning little bit amount of money, also you are actually giving the salary for that graphic designer too. Now you also have a lot of money, so basically you are kind of like a need another things, maybe another graphic designer or another kind of like accountant or things like that. So you add a multiple people. Okay, so when you add multiple people, then you will kind of like a control everything, and you will kind of like a create a kind of like a some little bit firm or little bit kind of like a some startup, just little bit, not really that much, just little bit. It's not really startup, it's a kind of like a thing because you are not getting any funding or things like that. You just kind of like a doing it that thing. Now what do you do? If you are doing this thing for at least like a 2-3 year, obviously you will have at least like a 5-6 graphic designer and probably almost like a 2-3 people who's kind of like a doing back end work regarding about the mail, accounting and everything. Okay, yeah. So this kind of like a something you have almost like a 10 people of team, okay, who is kind of like a somebody working for you. Now what you do is that you also kind of like a somebody have so many client base. Okay, like you also have kind of like a so many clients who's kind of like a somebody willing to work for you, willing to work with you and things like that. So what you do is that create the company, try to fund, like basically try to fund means like try to find the investor who is kind of like willing to invest. Okay, yeah. Also a lot of stuff. So when you are kind of like a true those things, when you are kind of like a simply free, then you are kind of like a thinking about long time open perspective. Okay, you are thinking about nay, like this is the kind of like work that I'm doing is really valuable. So basically what should I supposed to do? I just have to establish a business, I just have to establish a startup and things like that. Obviously you don't really have any kind of like only money, so you need to find a kind of like an investor who is kind of like a willing to invest little bit amount of money. Obviously it's not really that much funding, but little bit amount of funding so that you would kind of like only pay the salary of the employee and things and that. Okay, little by little take a little step. Okay, and if you're kind of like doing this thing, your team went to 10 people to 50 people, and when it 50 people happened, then obviously you're learning so much amount of money too. Okay, so basically what I'm trying to tell you is this thing: if you are stuck with the solo, then you might not gonna improve. Okay, because let me tell you one thing: the long-term vision is actually came when you are free. When you are free. Alright. So what is actually my motto? Like if I kind of like assembly establish my business and things like that. Okay. So let me tell you one thing, my step by step. Okay, right now I am kind of like a 32 and I am kind of like a trying to make an app. Okay, yeah. Now I don't know regarding about coding and things like that, so I'm kind of like a learning everything regarding about how the coding work and things like that. But one thing for sure is that I don't really have any interest regarding about coding. Another thing is that it kind of like somebody really fucked up my mind while I kind of like do the coding. Okay, yeah. But still I just have to kind of like simply learn that skills because it's really essential, because right now I can't afford any kind of like a developer or things like that, so I just have to do it by myself. Simultaneously I'm doing content creation too. Okay, yeah. So that I know that like a like basically I will not have any kind of like only money, so content creation is kind of like something giving me little bit amount of money as well as kind of like a time too. Okay, let me tell you one thing. My content creation is not really that much hectic. I am kind of like uploading vertical video every single day, and I could kind of like easily make that content within a kind of like a 4 hour. So that's it. Okay. And then after that 4 hour, like basically rest of the 4 to 5 hour I spend on kind of like a something developing skills, my web development or app development, things like that. Okay, yeah. Right now I'm not really earning any money, so I'm kind of like doing all those things by myself. Okay, yeah. Now when I started earning money from content creation, because I will not gonna earn from my app at the beginning, at least like I will not gonna earn any kind of like a money for at least like a 5 year. So this kind of like something I understand. So basically what I do is that whatever the money that I will gonna earn from the content creation, I will invest that money into my kind of like a developing my app. Probably it was kind of like also really less amount of money, but somehow I could manage to make an app. Okay, yeah. When I make an app, I kind of like a publish on the Play Store and things like that. Also I'm doing kind of like a some content creation, so I have little bit of kind of like a some audience base. I'm utilizing my audience base to kind of like a divert my audience into my application, so that they would kind of like use. Maybe like maybe very less people will gonna use it, but some people might gonna use it. Okay, it's not meant to be kind of like a only they are my audience. It's kind of like a only they are kind of like a feedback. Means like that I develop this app so that I'm asking them use this app and kind of like give me any kind of like a feedback regarding about application or things or that, how do you feel or something like that. Obviously these are my loyal customer, like these are kind of like a loyal follower, because I am kind of like a doing this content creation for a year, so they are know me and things like that. So basically they will give me a kind of like a very genuine feedback. I will utilize that feedback to improve my application a little bit better. Okay, yeah. Also simultaneously I will kind of like promote my application into my social media platform. I have little bit base, I have kind of like a little bit audience, which is kind of like a simply initial push that I will gonna get. Okay, yeah. And I know that my application would kind of like simply work little bit better, and I will get little bit of audience and things like that. Okay, but I will not gonna expect any kind of like some money from it. Okay, yeah. But is this thing that everything I will not gonna do by myself. So my plan is that earn little bit amount of money, okay, and move to Pune. Okay, when you went to the Pune, then you need to find any kind of like a developer who is kind of like a little bit good in that. I need to figure it out that I have to give them salary. Okay, yeah. With him and me kind of like make a kind of like a application. I don't know, somewhat something kind of like we make an application. Okay, yeah. In my kind of like assembly in my rented apartment. Okay, yeah. And then slowly we will gonna progress. This is the kind of like plan that I do. Okay, yeah. Also I decided that when I establish my app, or when I kind of like done everything, my team is good, everything is good, I decided that I will not gonna kind of like do any kind of like work. Yeah, I am a chairman, I am a CEO of the company, but I decided that I will not gonna do any kind of like work in my office. I will not gonna build any cabin in for myself, nothing really at all. Okay, basically why I'm saying this thing, because I don't want to do work in my office. But dude, you are putting all those effort for kind of like building your app and things like that, and you are saying you are not doing any office, like you are not doing any kind of like work. Well, probably is this thing na I have to be shift my mindset to someone else. Okay, yeah. Like basically I should not kind of like focus on day-to-day challenges, what is actually happen and things like that. For those things I have multiple people like a manager, team leader. These are kind of like a people who handle that daily challenges and things like that. I need to be focused on what should I supposed to like of thinking about long point of perspective. How do I supposed to make this business little bit grow? What should I supposed to do? Should I find any kind of like investor? Should I find any kind of like a this or that or stuff and stuff like that? Or how do I supposed to promote my application which way or that way? Okay, yeah. These are kind of like something chairman should supposed to do, and I have to be do that thing. I have to kind of like figure out a way that how do I supposed to make this business as grow as possible as I can. Okay, yeah. Also, I will kind of like a chairman, so that means I have to create a proper system. What is that system? System means like that how this kind of like a work happen, how the every person on my company, how they kind of like a simply work, which kind of like a simply this then like this happened, this happened, this happened, this happened, every steps. Okay, yeah. Also, I'm kind of like a try to make sure that the people who are actually working in my company, they are feel really good, they are feel really welcome, they are feel that ki they are kind of like a simply feel a part of something really bigger better. Okay, yeah. So yeah, and also I also wanted to kind of like a simply establish a connection as a chairman, as a kind of like a simply employee. I wanted to connect with those. I have kind of like a multiple ideas regarding about how do I supposed to connect with my employee. Is that key? I'm gonna play Lagori. Lagori is a kind of like a simply game that I'm gonna play. Okay, yeah, which is kind of like a simply really good. Okay, yeah. Um Once in a year I will gonna kind of like a have a tournament regarding about badminton tournament that people will gonna come and people will gonna kind of like play things and that. Okay, also is this thing that key we also have kind of like a playroom. Obviously we will not have that much bigger playroom, but whatever the money that we have and whatever the kind of like a somebody we can afford, we will have playroom regarding about that. In that playroom we would have kind of like a simply PS5 and things like that, so that people would gonna come and play, kind of like a being relaxed. Okay, yeah. There is also another thing is that I wanted to kind of like simply utilize those people to improve myself. How? Okay, there is a kind of like a simply thinking, that is the stuff that I'm thinking right now. Okay, yeah. I am kind of like a simply introvert since the beginning. Okay, yeah. Yeah, I'm really good talk in the kind of like the way that artifact, but right now there is no one in front of me, so that's why I'm kind of like talking really well. But in front of people I'm kind of like a simply really not that good, like I'm bit really hesitant and stuff like that. I wanted to improve that quality. I wanted to improve my communication skills. Okay, yeah, in front of hundreds of people and things like that. So, as a kind of like a assembly chairman, what would I supposed to do? Every morning I came, I will have kind of like a vent in front of all those people and kind of like a say, ask me anything and I will give the answer. Okay, yeah. Like at the beginning, I might not give any kind of like a proper communicate. But if I'm kind of like doing this every single day, it will kind of like simply help me to kind of like communicate a little bit better, because I knew that key in the future it is really essential, so that my communication skills should supposed to be improved. And this is only happen when you are doing practice, and this practice I have to do in front of all those employees that I hire, so they will kind of like give me a remark regarding about what is actually my communication skills, how is it actually good or not, or things like that. Okay, so this is I would gonna do regarding about all those things. Okay, so what I'm trying to tell you is this thing: being solo is not possible in every possible scenario. If you are kind of like a decided that you don't need any kind of like a grow and things like that, whatever the money that you are earning, you are satisfied and things, that is okay. Okay, it's up to you, it's a personal choices. Okay, yeah. But if you decided that you wanted to grow, obviously you need a people, and you don't really have any choice. You just, if you just do it by yourself, then obviously you can't grow. All right, yeah. So this is what I think regarding about, if I'm solo, what should I do myself versus delegate and outsource. By the way, the words that mentioned in here are kind of like a very professional and things like that. Whatever. All right, this is it. I should supposed to be end here, and thank you.